12 o'clock on your Tuesday afternoon now. Welcome in. It is Halftime Show. Tyler Head, along with you. Terry Ford will be along in just a moment. Fashionably late as always. Though I guess in the past week, well, no, I say that because in the past week, I've either been filling in for Bill in the morning or I've just not been here, been out the past 2 days on Friday and Monday, where I was going to say Terry does have to be on time in those days. But even on the days when I fill in with Bill, I still always hang out in the studio because I know inevitably he's probably going to be a minute or two late, which I did on Thursday last time I was in here. So it's been a week. It's been about a week since I've been in here for a full show. So excited to be back. Obviously, plenty to dive into about what's going on as we inch closer to Carolina's bowl game as they take on Illinois in the Citrus Bowl. Right at 2 weeks from now. So 2 weeks from today, you're either going to be in Orlando or around Columbia watching the game and seeing if Carolina can pick up a very coveted 10th win against the Fighting Illini to wrap up the 2024 season. And, kind of looking around from all indications so far as bowl practice has gotten rolling, doesn't really seem like there's going to be a whole lot of names not involved in this game at this point in time. I guess there's always an opportunity that an Eamon Warrior, somebody like that, could opt out, but you almost kind of feel like you hear about those things a little bit earlier, in the process. So I'd love to see South Carolina bring its full team, down there to Orlando and give it their all to try and get that, coveted 10th win, as it seems like Illinois going to be very much, doing the same thing. And there's a lot of pride that comes with that, right? We've talked about this many times. The 10 wins is something that this program, unfortunately, has not done a whole lot in their history. Yeah, you had the run with, or 10-plus wins, I should say. You had the run with Spurrier over a decade ago, but for that, one prior season? It's just not something that Carolina has a rich history of doing. And, having the opportunity to do it in a bowl game would certainly be very, very special. And you can't say that this team lacks motivation by any means, especially after getting snubbed from the college football playoff, the other week. In fact, Demetrius Knight was on SEC this morning, yesterday, talking to the guys on there just about the motivation and what they have to prove going to the Citrus Bowl in 2 weeks.
Of course, there's disappointment, but there's more of we have more to prove and more of we're not finished, and this is not going to kind of put us down into the next season, but this is going to skyrocket us into the next season, especially with expectations. So in our minds, in the entire locker room, we had the slight feeling they were gonna, have us on the outside looking in. So we're close enough just that we could smell it, we could taste it, and that just let us know that we're not far off at all. So that does nothing but build our confidence, and it didn't matter who we were going to play next. I apologize that it's Illinois. It's not their fault, but we're a team that's feel a little foot in the mouth right now. So we'll probably be playing with a little bit of attitude come that game on 31st.
And I think there's something to be said about having that mentality going into a bowl game of proving people wrong and being able to carry that momentum into an off season. And I look at what happened last year in the Orange Bowl, where you had Florida State, who got, of course, left out of the college football playoff despite being 12-0, despite being conference champion, paired up with Georgia, who also felt like they got snubbed after going from 1 to 6 in the playoff rankings, the final playoff rankings, after only losing the SEC championship game by a simple field goal. So both teams felt slighted going into that game. Florida State took the approach of, well, if we can't go after a national championship, who gives a crap? And let's just have a bunch of guys opt out. Let's just bring our C-level team into that game and just go to the Orange Bowl because we're obligated to. Where Georgia went into it with the mindset of, well, we want to go out there and prove people wrong and show them why we deserve to be in the college football playoff. They obviously end up slaughtering Florida State by 60 points. And so many people coming away from that game, well, Florida State didn't bring their whole team. It doesn't really matter. It has no bearing on what happens the next season. Well, look at what happened this year. Florida State is 2-10. Florida State's head coach is having to pay back roughly half his salary because of how bad of a year that they had. Georgia, on the other hand, who again mauled them by 60 points in that game, they're in the college football playoff. And I'm not saying it's all because of what happened in that game, but those kind of things can't have carryover. The way you close out a season, and it's not necessarily about the win or the loss, but it's the level of care and level of attitude you have going into that game. If you don't care, if you treat that game as nothing, that can have an effect as you go through spring, as you go through the next season, and with the players that you have on the roster. So the fact that Carolina and Illinois as well really care about this game, that they're both vying for a coveted 10th win, which is something that neither program has done a lot in their history. One, I think it's going to give us a very good game come December 31st that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in, compared to other non-playoff bowl games. But I think it does good for both programs, specifically South Carolina, going into 2025.
Now, you're being very harsh on Mike Norvell. He has offered a contribution.
Sure.
Fully voluntarily.
Sure, he
to
did.
Give money, half a salary, to the future of Florida State athletics.
Because, Terry, we all just volunteer half our salary.
I just did.
Out of the kindness of our heart.
Yeah.
When you pass the Santa Claus with the little ringing bell in the red bucket, you just say, you know what? Here's half of what I make in a year.
Absolutely.
Because you're just a good person.
I just gave half of my salary to the future of Cumulus Media because
there you go.
Care so deeply.
You believe in it, right?
It's called taxes.
That's right.
No, Norvell, the funniest thing about Norvell, and then we'll get back to South Carolina, Illinois. I love how they've couched this. Coach just decided to contribute half his salary.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, Jay and I were joking about it yesterday. It was like, you can see the meeting. Coach, come here a minute. Sure. Hey, just wanted to show you, here's last year's one-loss record. Yeah, you guys are really good. Didn't lose a game until that bowl game. And here's that contract we gave you, right? Yeah, almost $10 million. Here's this year's results. And this is the paper where you're going to donate half of your salary back to us.
It's a loser tax, is what it is.
It is. Like we were talking yesterday, Jay and I, it's like, do you think if Florida State would be in the college football playoff right now at 11-1, Mike Norvell would be contributing money back to Florida State? So good. Only in college athletics.
Only in college football, man. Hey, Gundy had to do it too.
Well, and the thing is, they were at least kind of like upfront about it. Like, look, dude, you sucked.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest here. I mean, you only won a couple games all year.
Didn't mean he enjoyed doing it.
Right. I'll remember there was a second where he was being, the mullet, going, wait a minute, you know what I've done for you? And now you want to do this to me now?
Yep.
And then he said, well, second thought, okay. It just, when you burn your pride off and you just look at your bank balance?
Yeah.
You go, you know what? All right, second thought. I like my bank balance being where it's at. Okay. Well, I mean, LSU, Brian Kelly's doing it too. He's matching up to $1 million or whatever. So, and by the way, what do all three of those teams have in common?
They underperformed this year.
Have you seen anybody who is in the college football playoff, any of those coaches doing this?
No. I don't know.
This is basically what you just called it, a loser tax. An underachiever tax.
We'll
got
pay
the underachiever
you
tax.
as long as you win, but just know, if you start sucking, we're going to need some of that money back.
Right. And that's basically what this is. This is like, you underachieved, give us some dough back because we didn't pay for this. But you know what, though? I forget what Adam Sandler movie had this in it. That's when he inherited all that money.
Oh, Billy Madison.
Was it Billy Madison? And I think it was a quarterback, and they were going to give him a new contract or something, or he was going to get paid. And he went, so if you suck, we get the money back, right? How great would athletics in general be if there was a deal? This is how much money you make if we win, but this is how much money you're going to make if we lose.
Yeah.
How about if contracts were tiered like that? How different would sports be, especially like there's baseball? Not that it isn't already, but even more, because could you see that? Could you see that being the pregame speech?
You just see the athletic director standing at the entrance to the tunnel with his hand out after you lose. And you got to just lick your finger and one bill after another.
Hey, ready? Buy cash per game. Oh, we lost that one. Here, I owe you that. But yeah, to your point of this game, I think Illinois has one opt-out. Wide receiver? I think.
Yeah, and they haven't really had any high-level guys enter the transfer portal, so they're pretty much bringing their whole team here.
And South Carolina, they haven't had an opt-out. They haven't lost an important piece into the portal.
Well, we don't specifically know about Kennard. He declared for the draft, but he didn't say, I'm skipping the bowl game, so he could, but we don't know.
Your first thought is if he's not going to play in the bowl game, he would get it out of the way and already said it and moved on. But maybe he's on the fence still. I don't know. But we haven't heard anything one way or the other. I think they've started practice, right?
Yeah, as far as I know. And again, if he's out there suiting up, I mean, you would think that means he's going to play.
Yeah, it's just very interesting. And a couple different things is, first of all, this team has got a good culture and a good locker room.
Sure.
And obviously, we've seen it all year. How much of this is, these guys want to play one more game together because of the culture that they've built? How much is it they've really bought into, hey, if we win 10 games, it'll be the 5th time in school history. We will go down as one of the best teams ever at South Carolina. How much of that gets into play? Because Shane right away pretty much brought up how important it was to win 10, right?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, and how much of it is, and I didn't think about this, now I'll give J.C. Sherbert props. This morning he brought this up, NIL. How much does NIL play into this where there's no opt-outs? Not just with this game in particular, but you're seeing less opt-outs, I feel like, across the country this year. Part of this year's 12 teams in a playoff.
Sure.
But I haven't heard a lot, like besides Marshall, obviously. We haven't seen as many opt-outs to go get ready for the NFL draft as we have in the last so many years.
And we don't know the structure of these NIL contracts, but I imagine there are some, maybe most of them, where it's like, hey, if your team is playing in a game, you're expected to play, barring injury, of course. So, yeah, I don't care if you don't want to play in the Rely Quest Bowl. If you want to get this money and you're at Alabama, guess what? You're going to have to play the Rely Quest Bowl.
And I said this because this is the one thing I don't like about all this. And I obviously want to see what you think, too. Unless you disagree with me, then we're not going to let you. No, it's just, all right, if someone wants to play in their bowl game, if someone does not want to opt out and they want to play, even though they have a certain draft status, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Good for you.
Sure.
I'm happy for you.
Sure.
But what I don't like is when that's used to be painted, ready? You know how man, he loves the team. He loves the culture. He's unselfish. He's about the program. That's saying if you opt out, what are you?
Selfish. You don't like the team. You don't like the program. Yeah. Look.
See, I think that's crap myself.
If you're expected to be a top 2-round pick and you opt out of your bowl, I have no problem with that.
No.
Because, again, you're talking about high-level money that you are risking by potentially getting injured in this game. If you're a 7th-round pick, it's like, okay, you might help yourself out by actually playing good in this bowl game.
Exactly.
So I'm not going to shame you for doing that, but I'm like, yeah, you'd probably serve yourself better by playing in it.
Yeah, I just think if you're going to be someone who's going to be taken in the first couple of rounds of the NFL draft, maybe if you want to stretch it, a premium pick, which is the top 3 rounds, and you want to leave because you don't want to get hurt, I respect that. You're not selfish.
Especially
you're not
if you have an injury
self-centered.
history.
Yeah, I mean, you know what you're doing? You're looking out for your business decision.
Yeah.
You're looking out for you. Just like a coach does when he leaves the program he's been with all year to go take his other gig, right?
Yeah, I'm not staying for the bowl game, by the way. Good luck.
Yeah, see you, bye. Remember I called you guys family? I found another family that's going to pay me more money to be the head of their family.
I like this family better.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that gets me. It's like, that's all okay.
Sure.
But then if a kid is going to be a first-round pick and is going to bag out of the Alamo Bowl because he doesn't want to get hurt playing in the Alamo Bowl, I don't like the way that's trying to being twisted.
Heisman Trophies winner is going to play the Alamo Bowl.
And that's because he's unselfish and he cares about the team and the culture. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We'll continue our conversation, obviously, about what's going on with South Carolina football. But big basketball game tonight right here at CLA. We'll get into that next right here on the halftime show on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We are rolling up until 3 here on the game. All right. So tonight, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock tip right here on the game in Columbia at 107.5, and also in Myrtle Beach, 100.3 the game. South Carolina, Clemson. Clemson's good, man.
Yeah.
They're good.
Ranked in the top 25, beat Kentucky in the SEC ACC Challenge. That's going to be a tough nut to crack.
They are a good basketball team. Above average on offense, top 30 in efficiency on defense, top 25, I think, on defense and efficiency, top 50 on offense, play slow, offensive rebound like a beast. They got like 4 or 5 guys that make over 36% of their threes. So they're just a good basketball team. Better than the last 2 versions Lamont has played this time of the year. Now, again, Clemson last year, of course, went on that run in the NCAA tournament. But this time last year, remember, South Carolina went up north, and they were leading that game in the second half, and then Clemson, the last 3-4 minutes took over and won. Year before, Chico Carter hit the game-winning shot here at CLA. This Clemson team is better than those 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were a very experienced team, returned 3 of those 5 starters from last year. So P.J. Hall and Joseph Girard, the only ones, not back. And they're a team that, last year, this was the only blemish on your resume when it came to non-conference play. Carolina took a lot of momentum going into conference play. And this year, you kind of feel like the term must win, we throw it out a lot, but you need to prove a point, right? Because when you've played the higher level competition, the Indianas, the Xaviers, you've fallen short. And there's no shame in that necessarily, but if you want to think you can hang in the SEC, especially with how tough the SEC is this year, you got to give Clemson a good game tonight.
Plus, it would be in your best interest to get a nice non-conference win under your belt before you go into the conference schedule, because that helps your NCAA resume.
Carolina's the only SEC team without a quad 1 or quad 2 win so far. So you are well behind everybody else right now.
And on paper, Clemson's better this year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good basketball team. What's going to happen? Who knows? We've seen good basketball teams go as the year goes on. But right now, when you look at Clemson, it's a top 25 team with a really nice win over Kentucky in that SEC ACC Challenge. I mean, the game was at Little John, but still, that was a nice win.
Yeah.
So they've lost. They lost to Boise State late, and they lost in overtime to Memphis.
That is correct. And both those games, they allowed a lot of shots. So if Carolina wants to win this game, you got to get your shots off, got to be efficient from the field, which is something, again, we've seen them kind of struggle with at times this year. So, look, anything can happen on any night in basketball. It's just one of those kind of sports. But you've got probably your toughest test in the non-conference slate tonight. And, again, really kind of sets the table, I feel like, going into conference play here in a couple of weeks.
And you got to keep Clemson off the offensive glass.
Yep.
You can't let them, get their missed shots.
Yep.
And that's South Carolina rebounding has been a weakness consistently, while for Clemson, the offensive glass can be a strength. So you got to keep them off the offensive board. All right. Lamont Paris was on Carolina Calls last week, and he scouted up the Clemson Tigers for us.
Yeah, there's some similarities stylistically in some of the things, in some of our foundational beliefs. So that tends to make for, honestly, if you look at the last 2 games, were both really good games. We won on a buzzer beater here in my first year. In a tie game situation in the last second. And then last year, we led almost all of the game, the vast majority of the game. And then we relinquished the lead, but we had a chance to make a comeback, missed a couple of plays, but they've been good games. So no reason to think that this one won't be either. It's a good game for us, a good game for them, and, fun for the state. To be able to rally around, but with some of the Gamecock performances this year against the old Tigers, we feel like we got to hold up our end of the bargain.
There you go.
So,
stylistically, they both play slow. Both kind of hang their hat to start on defense.
Not going to be a track meet.
No, I mean, take the under. Probably a good idea to take the under. Especially Clemson really slows teams down on defense.
Yep.
Teams really have to work against Clemson on the defensive end of the court to get a good quality shot. So it's going to be an interesting night. Can South Carolina win? Sure. I mean, Clemson's not unbeatable or anything, but you're going to have to play your best game of the year.
I think you've seen some things in the last couple games for South Carolina that give you optimism that and again, we knew this was going to be a new team that was going to have to gel and kind of figure things out with one another. And, we talked about Jamari Thomas when he came into the year, not being that kind of pass-first point guard that Talon Cooper was. But when you look at the past 3 games, got 15 assists over 3 games. He only had 17 in the prior 7. So he's getting a little more better at distributing the ball around a little bit. Nick Pringle's kind of cut down on the fouls, which were a problem for him earlier on in the season. CMB is coming into this game with 3 straight, double-doubles. Miles Stewart a little bit cold as of late, so you hope certainly gets back on track. But you're seeing some things start to kind of click a little bit that you hope translates to a good game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, somebody besides Colin Murray-Boyles had to become a consistent scorer. We've seen Thomas in the last few games become better offensively. You brought up the assist numbers. And he's also, I think, averaging, about 13, 14 a game the last 3 games. Pringle finally blew up offensively, and he scored 18, 19 in the game against USC Upstate, Pringle. So you need other guys. And look, not to be mean, Pringle and Thomas were brought in. Pringle was brought in to show the world he could be more of an offensive force than he was at Bama.
Yep.
Hasn't done it until the USC Upstate game. Thomas wanted to show that he could play, his ability plays up to the SEC level. And now in the last 4 games, Thomas is starting to show us that he can play on this level. But I said this all last year. A pass first, run the offense, quarterback point guard is gold. And we're seeing South Carolina have to adjust to not having that because that's just not Thomas. Talon Cooper was the dictionary definition of pass first, quarterback the offense, set the other dudes up to get theirs. But when Talon Cooper got an opportunity, he typically cashed in. That Thomas just isn't like that. He is more of a combo point guard, which I honestly, saying that makes me want to heave.
Yeah.
Because that's not a true point. I love true point guards. There's nothing against Jamari Thomas. This thing can all work itself out, and you can win with a different type of point guard, but he can't be just a shooting guard playing point guard. You can't have that.
Right.
And so Thomas is starting to settle more into the role, averaging 5 assists a game the last 3. He's also scoring because South Carolina needs other people to consistently score besides Colin Murray-Boyles.
Yep.
And we'll talk more about that game through the show as well. Up next, just in case you woke up and you're like, I don't have my phone. What's going on in the world of sports? We'll give you a few headlines about what's up. That's coming up next. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, appreciate you hanging out with us. We go till 3 on the game.
touchdowns of Minnesota. This will be key again tonight.
Play action from Darnold. End zone. Touchdown Jefferson.
That was Justin Jefferson snagging a touchdown catch in the Vikings 30-12 win over the Bears, and then shouting out for Randy Moss, which was very cool.
Absolutely.
And again, the Vikings just, and the game was in Minnesota, but still the Vikings pummeled the Bears. Again, Bears couldn't score in the first half. That's been a thing lately. Caleb Williams looks lost and confused and befuddled, and he's off target with throws. And
I want to know who thought these two Monday night games were supposed to be must-see TV.
Even coming into this, look, coming into the year, I get it. You wanted to highlight the Bears, Caleb Williams, all those weapons on offense, blah, blah, blah. You know the ironic part of this? Here's what's ironic about these four teams. Coming into the season, out of the four, like you said, who thought Atlanta was going to be a thing? Vegas. But here's the other part. Who thought Minnesota was going to be a thing?
Nobody.
Out of these four teams, the ironic part, in the offseason when the TV executives were making up this schedule, here's what they said. Man, we got to put the Bears on. With Caleb Williams and all that offense and those weapons, man, that's going to be some good stuff to watch.
Yeah.
No. And the other team they played is the fun one to watch.
Well, that's the thing is, like, at best, when you're making the schedule in the offseason, all four of these teams would probably be expected to be around 500, which the Falcons are, Raiders at 2-12, Bears at 4-10, and again, Vikings at 12-2. So again, just going back to the perception of what we thought these teams were going to be, why did that warrant a doubleheader in prime time
of these
teams? Like, it doesn't make sense. And both games were kind of awful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Vikings they slobber knocked Chicago for 60 minutes. Look, I know. Look, Bears fans are numb to the pain by now, but in the long run, this is good because you get a better draft pick.
Yeah, I think Caleb Williams is learning just how tough the NFL is very quickly.
You know, the other part of it, too, is it doesn't give you the illusion that this current setup of coaching is the way to go in the future. Because sometimes you get that fool's gold, like Vegas. Antonio Pierce did a nice job as the interim coach, right?
Right.
So you know what we're going to do?
We're going to keep him on.
Yeah, we are.
There's nothing more dangerous than the fake juice you can get from the player's coach getting the interim tag for a couple games. Because
I always look at it as the new girlfriend syndrome. New girlfriend's great those first few dates, right?
Sure, honeymoon phase, right?
You know why? She's not the last girlfriend.
Exactly.
But what you've got to be able to do as an organization is take a step back and say, okay, this was good. Like, this was the fun weekend at the beach, but is this the relationship you're going to get married with?
Right.
And again, we're not there. So we truly don't know. This is when you have to have an organization be objective, not run with the wave of, now. You got to say, okay, is this what this guy's doing? Is it sustainable as the permanent head coach?
Well, here's the thing, and I'm sure Jen could attest to this. Bears fans probably don't have the utmost confidence in their ownership making the right decision, whatever it is. And again, I don't think Thomas Brown's going to do enough to warrant being held on to as the head coach. But whoever they hire will probably be underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way the Bears have been. I mean, the GM hires, the coaching hires, you almost have to want to be this bad on purpose, this bad on purpose.
Sure.
And they're just terrible.
And again, the Lions and the Vikings have both shown you it's not this huge mountain to overcome to jump to the top of that division because both teams have done it pretty quickly. But again, the Bears have been the perennial doormat there for a long time, and I don't see any sign of that changing.
Okay, you're a Bears fan. To the point of what we're talking about, how dysfunctional your organization is starting at ownership. You look across the field at the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the Bears went out in the offseason. They got, Keenan Allen. They drafted Dunze, the wide receiver from Washington. Allen, wide receiver from the Chargers, one of the best wide receivers of his generation. And you get DJ Moore, who's really good. Yeah. You got three weapons.
Thought you were loaded.
Solid at tight end.
Got a solid running back in Swift.
And your offensive line was underrated last year. And you're a disaster. Coach has already been fired. OC's been canned. You can't get out of your own way. You scored 12 points last night. You haven't won a game since Hail Mary. You look across the field. The Vikings also have weapons, right?
Yeah.
The Vikings have a solid offensive line, even though they're starting to get beat up. And the Vikings are doing this with a cast-off journeyman, former first-round bust of a quarterback in Sam Darnold.
Well, that's my thing with him is like, they had this success at the beginning of the season. I'm like, all right, it's going to fall off at some point. He's going to go back to being old Sam Darnold, and it hasn't happened.
No, not yet. And here's the part of it. Again, start off with this. You hire the right coach. Kevin O'Connell comes from the Shanahan-McVay tree. It's a really quarterback-friendly offense. You saw Kirk Cousins in it. And they've plugged in Sam Darnold, and Sam Darnold all of a sudden looks like what he should have been a long time ago. Again, it starts with you got the right coach who has put in a system that is very flexible to fit each quarterback and is very quarterback-friendly. And you're watching a quarterback thrive who hasn't thrived at all.
Right.
So if you're a Bears fan, you're like, really? Why can't we get that guy? And we're hiring all these bums we're hiring. And look at Minnesota. They hire Kevin O'Connell, who, by the way, no one talks about how good O'Connell has been as a head coach in his time in Minnesota.
Nope.
This will be a second playoff trip in 3 years if my memory serves me, which usually it doesn't. But that's the thing. You look at Minnesota, and it comes down to coaching. And you look at Chicago, and it comes to lack of coaching. And again, you fell for the end of Eberflus last season, that they played better at the end. You were going to draft Caleb Williams. This is not a secret, Tyler. This is not like, Dow Loggins out of nowhere gets the Appalachian State gig, and you're like, well, how'd that happen?
Yeah, no, we knew that for a while.
We all knew Caleb Williams was going to be taken number one by the Bears. So if you're the Bears and that's what you're going to do, you have to look at Matt Eberflus and say, is this the head coach who is going to put everything in place to maximize Caleb Williams? And if you think he was, and all you had to do was go hire an offensive coordinator, really? You saw this team, the one-loss record. You saw the disaster that they had been, but you said, nope, we're going to stick with this guy. He's going to go hire an offensive coordinator. And Eberflus, trying to save his job and panicking, ran that guy off in less than a year.
Yep.
This all goes back. Who's hiring?
And now you have a lost season in the first year in Caleb Williams, where now he's going to get a new head coach. He's going to get a new offensive coordinator. It's like going to be like starting over again.
Yeah, it is.
You're 1 year behind the 8 ball.
Typically, when you're bad, and again, you got to be objective, and you got to look at. You can't have recency bias of the now. When you're bad, you got to look at everything, because really the perfect world is you bring the quarterback and the coach in together.
Sure.
They walk in holding hands. It's sort of like a marriage. You're going to have a ceremony. Somebody's wearing the wedding dress, and they're going to get married.
Yeah, and it's usually not going to be perfect right out the gate, but they grow together, saying,
Yes.
okay, all right, well, you're number one, we were here. You're number two, we're here. Now you're saying, okay, well, here's your number one to Caleb Williams. Now we're going to reset this, bring in a whole new group of people, and start over again next year.
And guess what? This new head coach, and the Bears won't do this because it would make sense, is you sit down, whoever you're interviewing, and, well, before you interview him, this would be me. Before I interviewed you, I would say this, okay, I know I'm not putting out anything you don't know, but we're building around Caleb Williams. I need you to come in here in this interview armed with your basic plan on how you're going to maximize Caleb Williams to be a franchise quarterback, and for us to use that to win a lot of games.
Right.
Come in with that. Come in with a basic beginning of that plan for me at the very least, because that's the most important thing for this football team.
Yeah.
That's what I need for whoever sits in that chair and interviews with me.
But again, it's more ideal for the coach that you expect to be here for the long term to be the one that selected said quarterback, because who knows if that's going to fit what he's trying to do.
And that's what I was getting ready to say, because you know what? Guess whose guy the quarterback is? The new coach's guy. Yep. Because like whoever comes in now, Caleb Williams isn't his guy.
No. Who says they're going to get along, by the way?
Right. If you are hired, and when you get hired, you know that Caleb Williams is going to be drafted number 1 overall, that's your guy.
Yeah.
And you guys are going to do all this together. Like we said, you're going to get married, go on your honeymoon, have those first weird moments of marriage together, and hopefully you have a smooth union that lasts a very long time.
By the way, look in Carolina last year with Frank Wright and Bryce Young, a quarterback that he supposedly did not want to draft, and see how that went.
Yeah.
And you wasted a year of Bryce Young's potential.
Yeah, who's the head coach in Carolina now?
Not Frank Wright.
Not Frank Wright. So once again, the Bears are doing things the way the Bears do things, and this is why the Bears are a dumpster fire all the time.
Pretty much
all the time. And the other game, let's get the highlight. Tyler loves this highlight because it's something that hasn't happened much lately.
It's drafted tight end in the common draft area, 4th overall. Unbelievable talent.
1,000-yard season in his rookie year. Made the Pro Bowl. Pump fake. Downfield throw. Wide open. Caught for a touchdown. There is Drake London. And the Falcons strike first from 30 yards out.
A touchdown pass by Kirk Cousins.
hasn't happened in almost a month.
What did 151 attempts or something between touchdown passes?
In the last prior 4 games, he had 8 interceptions, no touchdowns. That game was awful. That game was ugly. Slow.
And you're even a Falcons fan.
Yeah. I kept looking at Michael Penix on the sidelines. I'm like, what do you got to lose at this point?
Well, you're trying to fight for that NFC South title.
Even if the Bucs just collapsed in the next 3 weeks, is there any semblance of a playoff run in that Falcons team?
Here, look, let's say you get in at 9-8, 8-9, whatever, right? Are you really going to do any damage?
No, of course not. You're going to get bounced in the wild card round.
And that's the thing. When you're in the worst place to be in sports is in the middle.
Yeah.
That's the worst place to be because not only are you mediocre, but you build this scenario. Oh, if we only won 2 or 3 games like this or that, we'd have been really great. And that's never the truth. So that was an ugly one last night. All right, Firehouse Up, text the hour, 803-404-6100 next here on the halftime show on the game. Time to get our Firehouse Sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100 here on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, appreciate you hanging out with us. We roll till 3 here on the game. What do you got there on the old Firehouse Sub text line?
Steve-O says all coaches should be paid on a per-win basis, $1 million per win. Win 1, $1 million. Win 15, $15 million.
I like it. I mean, and we were playing around earlier about Mike Norvell having to give half a salary back, and we call it the underachieving clause. But yeah, I mean, these contracts are all guaranteed, and when you're winning, it's great. But like Norvell, look at that. You paid $10 million for this.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing. His contract extension was not unwarranted. They had a great season last year and got snubbed from the college ball playoff, but to respond with that, to believe in DJU, who, funny enough, declared for the NFL draft yesterday, like, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, boy, I tell you. By the way, don't have a party at the house waiting to hear your name.
Oh, I really hope not.
Don't.
That he's got to have self-awareness, right? He's got to be aware enough that he's not going to get drafted. Or, I don't even think he'd get a training camp invite.
He might get a training camp invite because he's big and he's got a decent arm.
We can get him in here and do something with him.
Yeah. That's what they think. Well, he's big. He can move. He's got a good enough arm. We can.
We're not going to see in that best players available thing that just rotates during the draft. That's not going to pop up.
Never once. Put it this way. They don't have to learn how to say Uiagalelei.
Yeah, Roger Goodell's never going to have to utter that on stage.
No, it's not going to happen. But then again, I get why I know why he's declaring. He's, 35 years old by now.
Yeah, it feels like that.
He is who he is on the collegiate level.
It's not going to get better. You may as well go.
And honestly, after the performance he put up this year, what Power 4 school is going to take him to be their starter?
It would have served him better to have come out last year after his year at Oregon State. Because, he wasn't a Heisman Trophy winner, but he was decent.
He was better than he was at Clemson.
He was better than he was at Clemson. So the opinion of him had started to shift a little bit. And you're thinking, he goes to Florida State. And he went to Florida State to prove a point, right? I didn't cut it in the ACC the first time. Let me go to a proven winner, a team that should have made the playoff. They're going to plug me in. I'm going to be successful, prove all those people wrong. Boy, did that not happen.
Right, and I'll improve my draft stock.
Yes.
And guess what? The exact opposite happened. I go back to that, too. If you're Mike Norvell and you're an offensive guy and you scouted DJU and you know his problems and you thought that was the guy to plug in after Jordan Travis, you really thought that? To me, honestly, out of everything this year, if I'm evaluating Mike Norvell, that's the thing that bothers me the most.
Yeah.
And now you brought in the Castellanos kid from Boston College, who's 4'6"?
Yeah, roughly.
When he's really good, he's really good, but he also can really struggle at times. So you better be putting an offense in because he's a dual threat guy who really runs more than he throws. You better be putting the right offense in for Castellanos.
You might be playing for your job next year, too.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And that's my thing. And remember, Bill O'Brien ended up benching Castellanos as the year went along. Again, when that guy's on, he's really good. And you saw it early this year. But when he's off, you see the limitations. Again, Mike Norvell's bringing in a guy where there's some question marks as a quarterback.
And, a part of him being really impressive for what he did against Florida State in that, I guess week one, their second game. But it's like, Florida State just sucked. So was it him being good or did you guys just suck that bad?
And I'm going B. I think that's the way these contracts should be set up for head coaches. You win, here's $1 million. You lose, nothing.
I'm for it.
You get nothing this week. I'm telling you, that'd be interesting. I forgot to put the word buyout. So thanks a lot, like always, on the Firehouse Sub text line. We do appreciate that very much. And say Norvell. Oh, ready? Okay. Norvell, at the end of this year, the buyout's $63 million. It goes down roughly $9 million each season after this. So it's still high after next year, which is 54. So really, it's not going to be. Look, you're going to have to bite the bullet in the next couple of years if you want to get rid of that cat.
Definitely.
All right. So Again, appreciate the Firehouse Sub text like always. 803-404-6100. We'll do one again next hour. Football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. That's next right here on The Game. You know, the Nest, we talk about it a lot. What's going on there? If you want to do some things to your home, again, since we've been doing these conversations about the Nest, I've talked to 2, 3, 4 people who say, yeah, man, I went there, heard it with you guys. I went there, and everything you say is spot on. Just call 803-978-2025. Set an appointment to go talk about what you want to do, whether you want to get new appliances, lighting, fixtures, plumbing, maybe just a new stuff in the bathroom as well. The Nest can help you, and they can set you up. You set that appointment at 803-978-2025. You go in, you tell the expert about your goals, your vision, your plan, your budget. They will walk you through the beautiful showroom, and they will get you set up. 803-978-2025, 1331 Gatson Street in the Vista. It is the Nest. Give them a ring. Get your home looking the way you've always wanted to look. Thanks to the Nest.
Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler and Terry Ford along with you on your Tuesday here on the game. It is time for football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hours to do it each and every day. And Terry, I'll start things off with some more good news from the Garnet Trust side of things. Jared Brown officially returning for will be his redshirt senior season here at South Carolina. Of course, he had a lot of injuries that he dealt with this year, didn't end up being as available as Carolina would have wanted him to, but certainly somebody that we had high hopes for coming into the year, and good to see him come back for another year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was a guy that, look, to be fair, he played out of position at South Carolina. He played in the slot, what was it, 90-some% of the time at Coastal.
Primarily.
So he was basically a slot receiver. But at South Carolina, Mazio Bennett was a slot receiver last year. Jared Brown, besides the injuries, let me see here, played only, he played out wide 87% of the time. So he roughly ran the slot about 13%, which, again, you go from 90-some% of your snaps in the slot, and it drops down to roughly between 12 and 13%.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're playing a different position. And playing out wide is a lot different than playing the slot. And Brown has really built the play in the slot, to be honest, if you look at just his size. So Jared Brown was basically playing his second-best position last year for South Carolina.
Well, and typically when you're lined up out wide, you're against guys that are better in coverage on defense compared to maybe like a slot nickel guy or something like that, where you can kind of have that advantage. So, yeah, and again, we'll kind of see if they decide to use him in different ways coming up next year. I think they had him come out of the backfield a couple times as well at times this year, which I think is something that he did, at Coastal as well. But, again, you're still looking for guys in the transfer portal at wide receiver, but Jared Brown coming back for next year.
And remember, he was a yak yard maniac at Coastal. This past season only had 108 yards a yak.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, just a different role. As the year went on, he started to feel, it seemed like he was getting more comfortable playing out wide and started to make some more plays. But it's good to have him back because there is potential there for Jared Brown to do some things if he's healthy. And really, at the end of the day, the biggest thing that hurt him was he just was hurt.
For sure.
He just wasn't healthy. So it's great to have him back because he's a veteran. His last year of eligibility, you add him. You got Nick Harbor, looked like he was starting to get it at the end of the year. At wide receiver, Mazio Bennett, as a freshman, showed you some stuff at times. I'd still like to see them, add a veteran wide receiver who is productive.
And it seems like that's hopefully going to happen, but there's definitely a lot of interest guys that are looking at. I know Casey Concepcion from NC State is a guy that's getting a lot of attention. Doesn't have the physical size that maybe you're looking for, which is something that in their search for last year. But he can make plays with the ball in his hands. And when you look at what the conversation around South Carolina is from interest in guys in the transfer portal, it shifted a lot from a year ago. I mean, look no other than the fact that Juice Wells transferred out because he was not sure about the quarterback situation. We all thought Lenore Sellers was going to be good, but we needed to see it happen. And now that you've proven that, especially in the back half of the season, I imagine there's a lot of guys in the portal at receiver and running back and all these other spots that say, yeah, I want to play with that guy because I think he's going to elevate me in this entire offense.
Isn't it interesting, the conversation now compared to what it was going into the year? Like you said, Juice Wells left because he wanted to go play with a quarterback with a track record, and that's why he went to Ole Miss.
And Jackson Dart was one of the most senior-laden guys coming back this year.
Yeah, so I get it, but now the conversation is flipped around 180. I want to go play with that guy, that Lenore Sellers dude. All right, Casey Concepcion here real quick.
His numbers took a bit of a dip this year, but Grayson McCall did get hurt early on in the season, so sure, that ended up having an effect. But man, when he's got the ball in his hands, he's a spark plug.
Quarterback position was just a disaster because McCall. Remember him? Finally, McCall's retired now because of
concussions.
Casey Concepcion played out wide 15% of the time at NC State last year. So, I mean, again, another guy that is used to spending a lot of time in the slot. And remember, he made plays his freshman year, catching it, running it. He was a massive weapon offensively for NC State. But yeah, just looking, he spent most of his time in the slot last year for NC State. Now, what does that mean moving forward? Well, again, you can get creative in how you do things.
Well,
and you can move him around the formation, Tyler.
And again, you have a new guy calling plays now that may look at it completely differently and say, okay, here's how Dal would use this guy, here's how I would use this guy. So again, there's a lot of possibilities here. And again, it's a much more attractive destination for higher level guys out of the portal this year, it seems like.
Well, you're seeing the interest of guys, the school difference in who's interested. Last year, again, no offense, I mean, you went and got Jared Brown from Coastal, you hit Nevada Reno, you rolled through the MAC.
Yep.
I mean, it's a whole different animal now when you've got some legit interest from some Power 4 receivers. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But Casey Concepcion would be a very nice pickup if they could pull that off. Look, there's a lot of competition for this guy.
Yep.
But
the fact that you're in the running with him, in the running with Justice Hayes, again, it says a lot.
Yeah, and look, Justice Hayes, I mean, if you see what happened last year with South Carolina, look at Rocket Sanders and the success Sanders had. And of course, when you're a running back and your quarterback is a dual threat guy who can do some damage with his legs, that's just going to make things better for you and open things up for you because teams have to account for Lennar Sellers.
Yep.
So if you get one of them, hey, great day, right? Get one of the two, great day. But Jared Brown coming back for South Carolina, which, again, just adds depth to wide receiver, and that's a good thing. Nothing new coming in or out of the portal for South Carolina, just a lot of rumors.
It's a slower process than it was a year ago. Again, you didn't have a bowl game to prepare for, so you could be, not to be more active, but you have more guys jumping in and all that kind of stuff. And for the guys that Carolina's had jump in so far, all been kind of that healthy transfer that we like to talk about a lot, where you're not saying, oh, man, can't believe that guy's gone, really going to miss him. I mean, like, most significant, I guess, would be Robbie Ashford as a backup, but still, you have to have Sellers. As long as he's healthy, you're good. And I'm sure they're going to address that in the portal as well, of maybe bolstering that room a little bit more. But for the most part, everybody that you've lost, wasn't a key contributor necessarily.
No, and that's the other thing about this team. We talked about this at the end of last year with the 5-7. I mean, you lost Juice Wells. And that one was the one that that hurt you the most, right? Because you were hoping he would come back and be your go-to wide receiver. But for a team going 5-7, you could have lost a lot more. I mean, look at Marshall won a bowl game. Their coach pieced out, and 29 dudes have hit the portal.
You could have. You lost a starter on defense with, obviously Stone Blanton in the middle. But, I mean, there's no doubt that you got better at that spot this year, even with him, transferring out. But yeah, you kind of lost those two guys, and obviously Mitch Jeter at kicker, which that was significant. And
that was a hurt. Yes.
Certainly could have used an extra field goal or two this year at times, but for the most part, you came away not awful. And again, the portal will open up for the guys on this team all the way through, I'm assuming, January 5th, because they play the bowl game on December 31st. So you just have the opportunity to lose some guys, but typically the high-level guys jump in pretty quickly, and none of those guys have done that.
No, and you know what's ironic? It hit me. We just brought up Mitch Jeter. Alex Herrera had a better field goal percentage than Mitch Jeter.
How about that?
Isn't that interesting?
Didn't feel that way.
No. Plus, I don't know how much of it Mitch Jeter's now kicking in South Bend, Indiana in the fall and winter, how much of a difference that made. But, yeah, Mitch Jeter, his number's not as good as they were at South Carolina this year, Notre Dame.
He missed that field goal that could have won them the NIU game.
Yeah, he didn't have the year that I'm sure Notre Dame was hoping for when they brought him in on that NIL.
No, definitely not.
Deal. Oh, reported NIL deal.
Reported NIL deal, yes.
All right, Wake Forest wide receiver Horatio Fields in the process of setting up a visit to South Carolina. Fields was their leading receiver in receptions and yards. Again, Wake Forest, they're not as explosive on offense as they were a few years ago, but still, Fields would be a nice add if you could get Horatio Fields. And speaking of Wake Forest, the Dave Clawson thing, and we're going to investigate that more in the next segment. Dave Clawson steps down as head coach at Wake Forest. Another, I don't know if it's going to be a temporary or more permanent casualty of the new world of college football. And we'll get into that. And it just brings up some questions about that in general, and questions about Wake Forest. I mean, Dave Clawson went to like 4 or 5 straight bowl games, won 19 games in 2 years combined, but the last 4 years have won 8 games. Did Dave Clawson forget how to coach all of a sudden?
No, but I imagine retaining talent at Wake Forest is harder than most places.
And so we're going to get into a little conversation about Dave Clawson and about Wake Forest. That's coming up in the next segment. All right, the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. We're going to run it through the bowl game. And I have been told that we can now pop this thing to $1,300.
Oh, we found the extra 100.
Yes, we have. It was.
They found it in your desk, right?
Oh, Dreamy Josh had it, and the hundy, it fell in his seat.
Conveniently.
Convenient, by accident, of course. So $1,300 in the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. Again, South Carolina scores a touchdown in the Citrus Bowl. We will do a drawing on January 2nd at 7:30 a.m. on the early game. And if you are qualified, you could be a winner. It's that simple. So go to 1075thegame.com. Click on the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. When a little flippy thing lands on it, fill out the form, hit submit, and you're in. Again, that's at 1075thegame.com, the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. Dave Clawson at Wake Forest. Is this an indictment of Wake Forest about can you win or not there? Is it an indictment on Dave Clawson? Is it an indictment on today in college football? We'll talk about it next here on the Halftime Show on the Game. We're doing football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Terry Ford, Tyler had decided to hang around here today. This is just today because tomorrow he'll fill in for Gunner.
So at the intro of the show that you weren't here for, I did say that it'd been like a week. Yeah. But at the same time, I was like, oh, no, wait, on Thursday I did hang around for basically the first segment.
Yeah, you did because I was coming downstairs, yeah.
Now, see, what would you do if I just forgot one day and just left?
Dave would be talking about guitars and honey buns.
He's had to do that before.
Yeah, he's fine. Well, because Dave is so scared to do that stuff because, Dave is scared of everything.
Dave is scared of a lot of things.
He's scared of a lot of things.
He's had quite a career.
Yes, he's been psychologically damaged by radio. You want to talk about having PTSD?
Yeah.
Woo! Our boy Dave's got radio PTSD, so he's scared to do anything. So when he has to do something like that, the mic switch is like a hand grenade. He's going,
hands trembling and sweating,
like he's in Hurt Locker cutting a wire.
Yeah,
he's like, So yeah, Dave, it's funny when Dave actually,
There was one day. It was one of our Firehouse shows, and we had some trouble with the device there as the show was getting started. And as soon as we connected, I just hear Dave talking about traffic. It had been about 3 or 4 minutes. I was like, that's the most detailed traffic report you were ever going to hear.
Every road in the Midlands, Dave covered.
I think you went up into North Carolina, too, just for good measure.
And by the way, there's an alley over there off of Gervais. It's pretty clear right now. Here's the 10-day forecast. Yeah, good old Dave. All right, so we roll football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We talked about the Wake Forest situation. Dave Clawson stepped down yesterday. And look, Wake is one of the, if not the smallest Power 4 school. They're a phenomenal academic school, obviously, but when it comes to resources and money and revenue generation and all those things, Wake Forest is not up with the big boys or even really in the mid-range. Dave Clawson won there because they ran a specific systems. They're very analytically based in their coaching. And they know they have to find certain players to fit their systems, which can be under the radar guys, but their skill set fits. Right. Sort of like Mike Leach's quarterbacks with Leach's offense back in the day. And that was working well for Dave Clawson. Again, he had a nice streak of bowl games going too. They were in the mix to win the ACC a few years ago with Sam Hartman at quarterback.
Yep.
Everybody was having trouble figuring out that mesh point offense they were running. And life was good. They won, about, 19 games in 2 years?
Yeah.
Well, the last 2 seasons, they've won 8 games combined. My guess is Dave Clawson left, not just, this isn't the only reason, but I'm guessing Clawson stepped down because of his frustration of not being able to get the players that he needs to run his systems because he's losing them to other programs because of NIL situations.
Well, they're very much in the same boat as I feel like a Vanderbilt is in the SEC, private institution, high academics and all that kind of stuff, to where if you play well there, you prove you can play in the ACC, you're going to get plucked. You mentioned Sam Hartman, who ended up at Notre Dame, obviously, after playing at Wake Forest. And again, you got guys in the transfer portal that Carolina's looking at. So any guy that shows any ability there that proves they can play at the Power 4 level, they're probably going to use that as a stepping stone to go somewhere else. And I can't imagine, as a head coach, just seeing your roster turn over year after year after year. That's going to be frustrating. And again, there's no sign, even with revenue sharing, I don't know if they'd be able to match what every other school in the country would be doing. So he may have looked at that and said, well, I'm not going to stand a chance here. May as well bow out now.
I think it's an indictment more on the situation at Wake Forest and schools like that in this new era. And look, Wake, again, like you said, it's a private school, high academic standards. I'm sure there's people who have a nice big fat wallet who went to Wake.
Think they care about football?
No. And that's the thing, like Vanderbilt. You know how many rich people went to Vandy or rich people's kids? I mean, Mark Cuban's kid goes to Vanderbilt. You think Cuban couldn't write a big NIL check to Vandy?
Think he cares enough?
No, not at all. Not even about their basketball program. He doesn't care. He cares about his kid going to school there. But that's the thing. For these type of schools to start having any kind of traction, the rich folk who went there or the rich folk whose kids go there are, going to have to help out. And you've got to convince them to help out. So that's kind of where these type of schools are. And, I think Dave Clawson just went, I can't win here like I have been winning here. And I'm not going to sit here and lose 8-9 games a year. I'm not going to do it.
He's in one of those positions where he can walk away. He can go sit on the ESPN desk for a couple of years, and if things smooth out, and if there's another opportunity down the road, he can go and do that. Or if he just wants to continue to do TV or something along those lines, he can do that as well. Again, he's made a lot of money. He's probably pretty well off. He's, 57 years old. So, again, it's kind of the growing trend that we've seen of coaches either just deciding to outright step away or say, you know what, I'm just going to be a coordinator. I don't got to worry about all this stuff. I can just scheme up plays and do that.
Well, you're right. Like Chip Kelly, Gus Malzahn.
Yep.
I don't want to deal with this. I just want to go coach ball. And, Dave Clawson could do that because at this point, is it just the fact that I can't win at Wake because of the new world, or I really don't want to deal with the new world? I don't like it. We'll see. Like Clawson, I bet you Clawson, eventually his agent will get to the TV folks and say, hey, man, you want Dave to come give it a shot? But if he thinks, he still wants to do this and he can navigate, the new water, but he just has to do it at a place that has resources and money, then we'll see. But yeah, it's sort of like the Tony Bennett, right, at Virginia in basketball. So Dave Clawson moving off from Wake Forest, and again, to me, I think it's more of an indictment of I don't have the bags.
Yeah.
To compete to get the players I need to get at Wake.
And look, for we talk about revenue sharing in a general sense with the anticipation from a lot of people that, well, everybody's just going to be on the same playing field. It's not going to be the case.
Nope.
Yes, the Ohio States and the Texas and stuff, they're not going to have any problem getting the $20.5 million to pay their athletes the most. Not every school is going to be able to do that. I mean, when you kind of listen to people that are in the know about these things, they say, yeah, probably be maybe like 10 or 15 at most that can really hit that number, and everybody else, just like with NIL, is probably going to be kind of falling behind.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like everybody's on a level playing field.
That money's got to come from somewhere.
Right. The NCAA isn't giving every school $20 million. That's not the way this works. So, yeah, more schools are going to have that money than others. And that's the thing. And plus, here's the deal. Let's say you cobble together your $20 million. Collectives aren't going away.
No.
So let's say you get $20 million. You get $20 million like a Texas, $22 million. Then Texas goes, by the way, our collective is bringing us another $20 million.
Yes.
And you're going, our collective is bringing us $12.14.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be a level playing field, and like it never is. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Demetrius Knight was on SEC this morning. I thought this was kind of an interesting comment Demetrius Knight made about the bowl game.
Of course, there's disappointment, but there's more of we have more to prove and more of we're not finished, and this is not going to kind of put us down into the next season, but this is going to skyrocket us into the next season, especially with expectations. So in our minds, in the entire locker room, we had the slight feeling they were gonna, have us on the outside looking in. So we're close enough just that we could smell it, we could taste it, and that just let us know that we're not far off at all. So that does nothing but build our confidence, and it didn't matter who we were gonna play next. I apologize that it's Illinois. It's not their fault, but we're a team that's feel a little foot in the mouth right now. So we'll probably be playing with a little bit of attitude come that game on 31st.
Basically saying, no offense, Illinois, you're just the next team in the way.
Yeah, you're next, essentially.
Basically, it's like, well, put my foot in my mouth on that one. Yeah. But you know what? You know what I like about that quote from Knight? He's talking like he's playing next year for South Carolina.
Sure.
And he's not. That's what I like about that. Here's a dude that's going to go off. His eligibility's done. He's finished. This is his last rodeo, and he's kicking off to the NFL. He's talking about setting up the South Carolina program like he's going to be part of it next year.
Yeah, and that sounds pretty on brand with his character.
Yeah, it does, right? And that's the other part. Look, Preston says this a lot, and you talk to other guys who have played. And I always love, you can tell someone, this is not a slight on anybody, but you can always tell people who didn't play a lot of team sports to people who do. Because when you say the word culture, they're the ones that roll their eyes.
It's real. It's a real thing.
It's so real. You have no idea how real it is. And it matters. And, I've talked to players, and again, Preston says on the air all the time, on the early game, culture goes from year to year, especially today in the transient world of college football and basketball. You are changing your culture every year. Well, South Carolina hit a grand slam on their culture this year with guys like Demetrius Knight, Kyle Kennard, to go with the leaders they already had, Rocket Sanders. I mean, just hearing Knight talk about South Carolina, like he's going to be back next year. We're setting this up for next year. We're setting this up to go to the next level, and he's going to be gone.
By the way, I'm pretty sure he's out of eligibility, so I don't think that's
he's 35 years old.
Yeah, so don't get your hopes up.
But yeah, I mean, that's the leadership they brought here. They got something. They got something to prove. Oh yeah, you kind of knocked us out of the college football playoff. Okay, we're going to go out here. We're going to take it out on Illinois.
He's been playing college football for 6 years. He's done.
He's done. So, and I just his quote when I first heard it this morning, I was like, "Yep, there's one of your reasons why this football team has such a good culture and a good room." That kind of stuff. All right, football. The 1:00 hour will continue on. We will hear. We'll hear from a couple different folks. James Franklin will talk about the problems in college football with the calendar. And Bill Belichick is on the Pat McAfee show. He's all tingly about his future in college football. So we got that coming up. It is a halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head. Tonight, 6:30, pregame, 7 o'clock tip. South Carolina, Clemson. You can hear it right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and our affiliate in Myrtle Beach at 100.3. Again, South Carolina, Clemson tonight. Our coverage starts at 6:30 right here on The Game. What we're talking about is football, like always in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. All right, James Franklin, of course, Penn State in the college football playoff, I think could be an upset victim, by the way, if they're not careful on
James
Saturday.
Has such a great record in big games, right?
Big game James. He's beaten a top 5 team one more time than I have.
That's true.
He's like 1 in 100 or whatever it is, 1 in 18. So James Franklin taking on SMU on Saturday in the college football playoff in Happy Valley. Now, he has an issue. His backup quarterback, our boy Trabula, Brett.
Bo Prabula.
Bo, I was close. It began with a B. Prabula, again, this guy has played. He filled in for Drew Aller when Aller was hurt.
They got packages for him
because he's a he's a threat running the football. You saw the packages in the Oregon game in the Big Ten championship. Well, old Bo, and he's a state college kid. He grew up in PA. There's pictures of him wearing he's a Central PA kid. And he always wanted to play at Penn State. And trust me, Pennsylvania's filled with these kids.
Yeah.
Here, we don't understand how crazy they are about Penn State football in the state of Pennsylvania, especially Central Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
So this kid always wanted to play at Penn State. And now he knows he's not going to start. Drew Aller's coming back. So Prabula wants to start somewhere. So Bo has to hit the portal to maximize his opportunities, but right now you're smack in the middle of the college football playoff. So now James Franklin will lose his backup quarterback, who is important. And James Franklin says, man, we got some problems in college football. Here's the Penn State head coach.
We talked last week, had no intentions of leaving, but we got problems in college football. And I can give you my word, Bo Prabula did not want to leave our program, and he did not want to leave our program until the end of the season. But the way the portal is and the timing of it and the way our team is playing, and when you play the position of quarterback and there's only one spot and those spots are filling up, he felt like he was put in a no-win situation, and I agree with him. And number one, I hate for it. Number one, most importantly, for Bo Prabula. I don't think it's in the best interest of the student athlete. I don't think it's in the best interest of college football. But I think that's our challenge right now, right? Who is really running college football and making the best decisions for the student athletes and for our sport as a whole?
Nobody.
I was going to say. Hey, James, here's the list. There you go, Bob. But here, look, I get it. But here's the thing that gets me. And this is the problem with college athletics.
Yeah, no, makes a good point.
Until it affects you, you don't care.
Sure.
That's the problem. You need someone who thinks about the big picture, even if that these things matter, whether it affects the individual coach or not, it affects someone. That's why you need someone hovering over the sport.
And the point, he was bringing up where, hey, he didn't want to leave, but you got to think about his situation. Now, we didn't know Drew Aller was coming back until yesterday after Prabula had announced his, intentions to transfer, which kind of told you what the deal was going to be. Yeah, think about it. Spots go fast. And yes, technically speaking, so the portal officially closes on December 28th, but if you play after that, you get a special 5-day window after your bowl game ends to enter the transfer portal. So let's just say Penn State runs all the way to the national championship game. That means at the earliest, Prabula could enter the transfer portal on January the 21st, if that were to happen. Do you think there's going to be a lot of good quarterback positions open on January the 21st?
No.
Probably not. So if you want to go start somewhere at a Power 4 school, you got to go now.
And the other part is classes have been going for 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's a whole other mess. We don't think about the academic side of things, but that is important.
No, that's not important. Screw that. But the point is this was set up when the bowl games ended by early January.
Yeah.
this system was not put in place. Well, I'm just going by the classroom part of it.
Sure.
Enrolling in a new school, was because, bowl games are over. Classes typically start, mid-January?
Yeah, something like that.
I haven't been in school since the 1800s, but it used to be about mid-January. But that was all clean and done because the college football season was over. Guess what? It's not that way anymore.
No.
So if you give Pribula a 5-day window after that, he's now going to go to a school at the end of January. Here's the thing. Can you even do that?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is most coaches would ideally like to have their transfer portal stuff wrapped up very quickly. So there's nobody out there saying, well, I think we can get this Pribula guy, but we got to wait until mid-January when he hit the portal. Like, no, you got to go now.
It's just the whole thing is clunky, and James Franklin is right. But again, James Franklin doesn't worry about it till it affects him.
No, and we haven't really seen this affect a playoff team up to this point. Now, again, typically in the 14 playoff, you'd have guys, because again, 2 of those teams lose on January 1st and then go in the portal and within the first couple days in January, and it all resolves itself. And again, now you're going to have teams playing all the way to the 10th of January. 2 teams are going to play all the way to the 20th of January. So it does come to a point where there could be a possibility where say, hey, we won our quarterfinal game, but I don't feel great about the semifinal game. I'm going to go ahead and bow out. I'm gone.
I got to roll because, again, you this could happen, especially with your depth with backup guys.
Or it could be a situation like SMU. There's not high hopes that they're going to go very deep in this thing. Could be a lot of guys on that roster say, you know what, probably going to lose this weekend. I'll go in the portal after that. We're good. Oh, crap, we beat Penn State. Now we're playing on January the 1st. Ugh, I got a decision to make here.
Well, last year Malik Murphy left Texas, but nobody cared. He was the third-string quarterback behind Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers. So no one cared. Oh, Malik Murphy, whatever. But that's the point of this. Again, the calendar is clunky, and it's got to get declunked. It really does. But no one cares until it affects them.
Right.
And that's the issue. That's why you need someone in charge who thinks of these things and they don't just wait for them to affect themselves. They're not reactive, they're proactive.
Yeah.
The NCAA has been built on being reactive or just sticking your head in the sand or just being a hypocrite. Also, here's Bill Belichick on the Pat McAfee show. I wonder how much they pay Hoodie.
Will he keep doing this as the coach at North Carolina? I hope so.
Oh, that'd be great. Bill Belichick was on with Pat McAfee, and he talked about how excited he is about jumping into the world of college football.
I'm excited, to be part of the process and, to start on all the newness of it, the spring ball, the schedule, the recruiting, and just interaction with the other sports, with the lacrosse team here, with the basketball team. Went over and watched the basketball team work out yesterday, and they've had a lot of great players, obviously a great tradition with Carolina basketball. So just being part of the whole, just being part of the whole community process here in Chapel Hill it's been amazing.
Okay. He's excited now. Let's talk to him in a year after he's been through all the transfer portal and the NIL and he's been through a season and he realizes, wait a minute, I can't take vacation like the NFL. There is no vacation there, bub. Cruton never stops.
ABC, always be Cruton, man.
So we'll see how Bill is after year one, but right now the Hoodie is excited. And there is some whispering, which I don't think will happen. But if Quinn Ewers decided for some reason he wanted to come back to Texas, there's rumor that Arch Manning would then hit the portal. And guess who Bill Belichick's buds with?
Good point.
There's been a little internet rumoring that maybe Arch Manning could end up in Chapel Hill.
How ironic would it be if after all the times he came up short to a Manning, that a Manning ends up being his way of winning something in college?
Would be interesting, wouldn't it? So, anyway, that's the little stuff there with Bill Belichick. There is a transfer portal. There was a transfer portal visit here yesterday as we do football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. A guy named Omega Blake. Ever heard of him?
Yes.
Was at South Carolina, transferred, went to Charlotte. This past year, he was at Charlotte. And no one's even talking about Omega Blake because, he was here, whatever. Omega Blake averaged 25 yards a catch at Charlotte.
He was a good deep ball threat.
Last year, to talk about deep ball threat, I just broke up the game log. Omega Blake, in 8 games, had at least one catch of over 20 yards. He had games ready for this. He had a game against Florida Atlantic, 5 catches, 205 yards, including a 75-yard grab. Against Memphis, 3 receptions, 128 yards, including a 57-yard catch. Against Rice, 5 receptions, 153 yards, including a 66-yard reception. A 42-yard catch against North Carolina. That's a lot of deep ball production right there, my man.
Definitely so.
Very interesting. And he was in for his visit yesterday. And again, Omega Blake, 6'2", 180. So just a little something there about a guy that people go, eh. So he did okay at Charlotte. All right, Firehouse Sub text the hour next, 803-404-6100. We will give away some basketball tickets coming up as well here on the game. All right, time to check out our Firehouse Subtext of the hour. 803-404-6100 as we roll football in the 1 o'clock hour here on the halftime show on the game. What do you got, man?
Chris pointed out something we haven't really talked about in reference to the Citrus Bowl. Justin Stepp is on that staff, by the way, as a wide receivers coach. Remember that going down earlier on this year?
Oh, excellent. Paul on the text line. I totally forgotten about that. There's an angle.
Because he was moved to tight ends coach.
Yep.
They brought in James Coley. Justin Stepp left. Coley left.
Mike Furry came in. And
I think Sean Elliott came in
yes,
first.
and then Furry
Mike Furry came in. That was a fun couple of weeks.
That was. It was interesting, wasn't it? And look, it's worked out fine.
It has.
It's worked out fine. We're getting there, but it's worked out well. You get Elliott back, and obviously Sean Elliott bringing you a lot of experience. He's been here before. There's positives, obviously, with Elliott and what he does as a coach. Furry, the wide receivers seem to be developing. Furry's been a maniac. What did they get, like 50 wide receivers in this recruiting class or whatever?
It was a good haul. Having a guy that played at the highest level goes a long way.
I think 4 4-stars and a high 3-star in the wide receiver group. So nice work by Mike Furry. So everything worked out. Look, we talked about when Justin Stepp moved on. Again, if you're an assistant coach and you perceive that you've been demoted, whether you have been or not, or you think your new role diminishes your resume, or 3, you don't want to do your new role because you feel like the role you were in was better for you and you want to move on, you move on. That's fine. Head coach has to make a decision, and it's up to you as an assistant coach if you want to stick with the decision it's made or you want to go move on.
Hey, it seemed to have worked out for both sides.
Yeah, everybody's good. Everybody's good. I forgot about that. That's a great text. Totally slipped my mind.
I don't know if that adds any more motivation to the game or not.
It's a fun little sidebar.
Yeah, sure.
That's cool. All right, as we do football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors, we like Kenny Dillingham.
Totally.
At Arizona State. The story's just really cool. I hope they can keep him. He's from Tempe. I mean, he lives right down the road from the stadium. He grew up in Tempe. He wants to be in Tempe. But the word is the president of Arizona State's a goober.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he doesn't believe in paying a football coach more than you would pay the school president. You know what the school president is? Him. He's just
School president ever taking a team to the college football playoff?
All the time. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, I don't want to put athletics above the business school. Do 70,000 people show up to watch dudes take business exams?
Not last time I checked.
Look, I'm not sitting here saying that you should bow down to everything in the athletics department. You got to understand, though, the importance in using your athletics department.
I was going to say, you got to understand the thin ice you're walking on, because, like you said, he's going to be a sought-after commodity.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of programs that are probably going to throw a lot of dough at him that he may end up saying, you know what, I'm going to go there. And you can only blame yourself if he does.
Right, because, you've got to learn how to leverage success in your athletic department to make a ton of money. How many times do we hear this? The athletic department is the front porch of the university.
All the time.
And you have to leverage Kenny Dillingham's success to be able to pump up your enrollment. And not that stuff you do with the online advertising for Arizona State. Remember, that was everywhere for a while. Hey, get a degree from Arizona State online.
Well, it used to be the number one party school in the country, and that probably pulled a lot of people in.
Wouldn't have pulled me at 18.
Not at all, because you really love your academics.
I love my academics at 18. Forget party school and hot co-eds. Tell me about your marketing degrees. So yeah, you should pay Kenny Dillingham market value, and he'll stay. He loves it there. His wife's from there. Their whole family lives within blocks of each other. Don't bleep this up.
Yeah. Seems perfect.
Here's Kenny Dillingham real quick. Now we don't have time now. We went on a rant about Kenny Dillingham. We'll play it in the next segment. Kenny Dillingham talking about Arizona State defying the odds, and the story itself is good. They were picked last in the Big 12. Who's going to the college football playoff from the Big 12?
Arizona State.
I mean, just the story's good. Dillingham is, 16 years old?
Yeah, about there.
I mean, he's the youngest coach in Division I. It's a great story. He's turned that thing around. I hope the president of Arizona State doesn't screw this up, because Dillingham will leave. He gets a great offer from a Power 4 school. He'll say, yeah, it's my hometown, but you know what's better than that? Doubling my salary. So we'll get some Kenny Dillingham in the next segment. Also hear from Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. That's coming up in What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. This has been Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, appreciate you hanging. We go till 3 on the game. Men's Clinic of South Carolina, very vital to you if you're a guy who is just not feeling like you. You're getting older, you're in your 40s, your 50s, I don't know, maybe even your late 30s, and losing testosterone is real. It goes away. But good news is you can fix that problem. But you got to call 803-875-MENS. You call the folks at the Men's Clinic, Dr. Dan and the staff. They take your call. You tell them, I'm not sleeping like I used to. My workouts stink. Bouncing back from my workouts is terrible. I can't remember anything anymore. I got no life drive, sex drive, professional drive, personal drive. They'll say it could be low testosterone. They bring you in. You tell them your story. If they think it could be low T, they'll do some lab work. If it is low testosterone, they will put you on a program specifically designed for you to get you feeling like you again. Again, low testosterone is a real thing. Call 803-875-MENS. Maybe you can help yourself out. One way to find out, go to the Men's Clinic of South Carolina.